Hi biology students, I hope you're doing well. I'd like you to keep a record of your bell ringers like we would do in class, and I'm going to put everything on here on the YouTube channel so that you can access it. Check your Teams. Microsoft Teams has your packets that you need and all the information. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me at my school email. So the first question that I already sent out to you was, what is ecology? What are food chains? And can you make one for Lake Charleston? Let's go ahead and get started with today's lesson. First, ecology. I'd like you to look up and find a definition for ecology. We're going to go ahead and do the ecology unit because it lends itself better for the online format. And we're going to think about ecology and how nature affects other systems and how we affect nature and how all the systems are basically intertwined. So I'd like you to come up with a definition for ecology and a good grasp of what that term means. The general definition, the simplified definition for ecology, is the study of the interactions among the organisms with each other and with the environment. We're going to go through some terminology in this PowerPoint, and then we're going to have some work that we're going to look at that I'm going to send you on the Microsoft Teams. The biosphere is the largest portion. It's the portion of the planet where life exists. Then we have some terms that we need to understand, such as species. That's an individual that can breed with one another. Ducks can breed with other ducks. A population is an individual of the same species in the same area. Although all ducks can breed with one another, if they're not near each other, they're not going to have baby ducks. So, speaking of baby ducks, I thought, why not use the rubber ducky? So, a population is always composed of the same species of organisms. This is something that students often get mixed up. So again, the population has to be all ducks. And so in this case, we have all rubber duckies of different personalities. The community is all the populations of different species that live together in an area, such as shown in this picture, where you can see a pond environment where you have ducks and fish and crawdads and snapping turtles and dragonflies all living in the same area. I want you to think about what's in your backyard community and make a list, and we're going to try to make a food chain from that. So that's just a task that I want you to get to, if the weather's permitting, to get outside and to look around and see what is living in your backyard. An ecosystem is the community plus the physical factors in an area, such as sunlight, rain, soil, temperatures. These are often called abiotic factors, and that's another term that you're going to look up with some of your homework. Some examples would be in this picture here. We have a rotting log, a koi pond, a lake, a clump of dirt, a field, an old maple tree. All of those would be things that affect an ecosystem. A biome is a large area that has a particular climate and a particular species of plants and animals that live there. An example would be the tundra. Okay, other examples are the temperate forest. Temperate deciduous forest is where we are, but we're actually right here on the line between the temperate deciduous forest and what would have been natural grasslands. You can see all the world is divided into different biomes based on the amount of sunlight that they receive and the annual rainfall. The biosphere, again, is the largest part. That's all of Earth that supports life. So there's a quick check here. I want you to think about these questions and make sure that you can answer them based on what we went through. So first, are all the different populations in an area, what would that be called? That would be called a community. And ecology is the study of what? of the organisms in the environment. The interaction. The third thing, the part of Earth that can support life. That's the whole that's called the biosphere. All the living and non-living factors in an area make up the ecosystem. A desert, a rainforest, a tundra, and a grassland are all different types of, that's the biomes term in this case. All right, so in some of your homework and some of the other things, we're going to look at a lot of graphs and a lot of ways that we can measure and study ecology. Studying ecology, because there are so many factors at play, we have to do a lot of observations, experimenting, and modeling. We are currently working on making a butterfly habitat at the corner at the high school, and there's a couple of them, one behind the library and one at Lake Charleston. And we're going to utilize that to study the ecology of the area and of the butterfly, the monarch butterfly specifically. Okay, models are ways that we can predict what's going to happen. So here's a model of the carbon dioxide concentrations and the temperature projections that we've seen and how it will affect. All of these are good, but you have to remember that it has its limitations. There are many factors that go into ecological research, ecological studies, a lot more factors than, say, like a chemistry experiment or anything else. Due to that, it can lead to some misconceptions, and you have to be sure that what you are graphing will work. So, sometimes just because you would do a best fit line doesn't mean that it would be true. So let's look at this example. In this example, I've taken a person's height as they age, and I've graphed that when they were 0 to 18, this is how much they grew. Here's their height in meters, I presume. Oh. Yes, their height in meters. Basically, or it's in feet, excuse me. It's in feet. And another reason why you should always put your units on the bottom of your graph. So if we were to extrapolate a best fit line from this data, you would see that they increased their height all the way till they were 18, and we would see that they continued to increase their height. If we kept doing this, though, and projected this graph, you could see that at about age 30, they would be 22 feet tall. So that model wouldn't fit. It wouldn't account for the fact that you stop growing after adolescence or around 22. So you just have to be very cautious with models in ecology and make sure that you're looking at the other factors that are at play. All right, I would like you to try to answer these questions on a separate piece of paper. Go ahead and put it in your bell work. I'd like you to look at these 1 through 7 and make sure that you have a good grasp of the terminology that we've discussed in this PowerPoint. Okay, we need to talk about the energy flow, and we need to bring back some of your terminology from your lower grades so that we can utilize it when we do an advanced study in ecology. First of all, autotrophs are producers. Autotrophs are things that can make their own food. They are things such as plants. Heterotrophs are consumers, and they have to eat something. They can't make their own food. All animals are heterotrophs, and they need the producers in order to survive. I'd also like you to take a look and review the types of consumers. If you need to look it up, look it up. This is something that should have come back from you from 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. The definition of herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, detrivores, and decomposers are all vital to ecology and understanding how interspecies are going to relate to one another. The main thing that runs all ecology and all life on Earth is sunlight. Without the sunlight, we couldn't have the autotrophs that feed the consumers. We would not have life on Earth as we know it without sunlight. Photosynthesis is where the light is converted into energy by plants, in the form of food. And it's stored as a carbohydrate, if you recall back to our macromolecule unit from the first semester. Photosynthesis review. We've done photosynthesis and cellular respiration. You know that the equation for photosynthesis is seen here, and that carbon dioxide and water are combined to produce oxygen and sugar. Chemosynthesis is where food can be made directly from chemicals, and there are some really important bacteria that do this. Some such bacteria live in ocean vents, and they make their food from the chemicals in those vents. So just to give you an example of some food chains and food webs, I'm going to show you a very simple food chain here. The direction of the arrow tells you where the energy is going when one organism consumes another. Each step in a chain or web is called a trophic level. And so you have the autotrophs, you have the primary consumers, the secondary consumers, and the tertiary consumers. So in this case, we have a plant that the mouse eats. The mouse is then eaten by the snake, and then finally the hawk eats the snake. Primary productivity is measured. It's the rate at which organic matter is produced or created by the producers, So if you have more plants, you have more productivity. Which of the following ecosystems do you think has the greatest primary productivity? The rainforest, the desert, or the tundra? Yes, the rainforest. I have an activity if we get back to class for us to analyze the rainforest and the amount of productivity there. The rainforest is in an area in the world where it receives a majority of sunlight and rainfall, and both of those things allow it to be a very productive area of the world. All right, here we're going to take a look again at the terms tertiary, primary, and secondary consumers. So let's first look and see if we can find the primary consumer. So this is the person that is, or the species that is consuming the plant life directly. Can you find anything that is eating just plants or eating plants directly? The mouse, yes. The squirrel, sure. The grasshopper, absolutely. All three of those would be considered primary consumers. Secondary consumers are the ones that are eating the things that are eating the plants. So in this case, hey, that mouse, it's eating the grasshopper, so it could be a secondary consumer too. Oh, it eats plants and animals? I think it might be the omnivore. The frog, oh, we forgot the rabbit. Rabbit is what? Primary consumer. The snake could be, in this case, a secondary consumer, or it could be a tertiary consumer, depending on which path you follow. Tertiary consumers are the ones at the top of the food chain. There's usually less of them at the tertiary consumer level. They're the ones that are going to be your large predators. In this particular food web, the fox and the owl are considered the tertiary consumers. I would like you to draw a lake ecosystem with as many species as you can think of. Think of Lake Charleston. And I want you to try to include all the different types of consumers. So this is clearly not Lake Charleston. This is a lake a little further up north. But you can see how I've included several things. One of the main things is the algae and the pondweed that is going to be the production or the autotrophs for everybody. Tadpoles and small stickleback bugs, aquatic insects are crucial to the survival of a lake ecosystem. So your frog is going to eat those insects, and then you're going to have fish that are going to eat the bugs as well, and the small tadpoles. And then finally you're going to have the larger fish eating the smaller fish. It's a fish eat fish world out here. Heron are going to eat frogs. They also eat fish. The otter is going to eat, what is the otter going to eat? Some fish. He usually eats fish. Okay, here would be another way that you could draw a food web. This one is a little less, I think it's less complicated, but some people think it's more. It's showing you the feedback loop that occurs between animals. So it seems fine that the heron would eat. Notice it has 3 different options on what to eat. One thing is this particular fish can eat 2. It can eat dragonfly larvae, and it can also eat the snails. So it gives it a couple options. The least options for food, the harder an organism will have for survival. Here's another one that would be a little more reminiscent of Lake Charleston. I like the symmetry of this particular food web. However, there's a lot going on here. You can see all of the decomposers and scavengers down here. You've got your producers, your autotrophs, your primary consumers here, and then your secondary consumers. And then at the top, what do they have for the tertiary consumers? It looks like they have the blue heron and the little boy fishing in this particular case. Finally, I just wanted to put one more picture up to show the feedback of the things that are in a aquatic ecosystem. Lake Charleston certainly has its share of snapping turtles. And there are blue herons and herons there. If you've not been out on the lake trail, I recommend it when we have a more opportune time.